I'd like to call the meeting to order. With deep gratitude and respect, we are honored to be learning and unlearning on the ancestral and unceded land of the Musqueam, Squamish Nation, and Sept Nations. Opening remarks. The meeting is currently being broadcast live, and both the audio and video recordings will be accessible to the public for viewing even after the meeting ends. Footage from this meeting may be viewed from Canada or anywhere else in the world. The board has strong commitment to ethical conduct. This includes the responsibility of all participants to conduct themselves with appropriate decorum and professionalism. As a chair of the committee, it's my responsibility to see that decorum is maintained. Following presentations, there will be an opportunity to ask questions for clarification's purpose. I ask all participants to keep questions and comments to the content provided in the presentation or report. Before we begin, I ask that all participants introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Good afternoon, Pedro de Silva, Associate Superintendent, he, him.
Alison Ogden, Associate Superintendent, she, her.
Lois Champedley, Trustee and member of the committee.
Trustee Victoria Young, I am an alternate, I believe, or not on the committee.
Bruce Garnett, District Principal at the Newcomer Welcome Center, here on behalf of VASA.
Deborah Tintin, Vancouver Elementary and Adult Educators Society.
Carl Janzi, Vancouver Secondary Teachers Association.
Kirsten Toring, Tsleil-Waututh Nation rep.
Kirsten Baker Williams, Squamish Nation.
Lucetta George Grant Musqueam.
Riley McMitchell, Vancouver Elementary Principals and Vice Principals, he, him.
Scott DL Paso.
Suzette Magri, QP15.
Susie Ma, Trustee, member of this committee.
Christopher Richardson, Trustee and member of this committee.
Janice Myers, Associate Superintendent.
Maureen McRae Stanger, Associate Superintendent, she, her, elementary.
Chaz Desjardins, Director of Instruction, Indigenous Education, she, her.
Rosie Petchka, Director of Instruction, Learning Services.
Shannon Burton, Director of Instruction, Education Services, she, her.
Chris Wong, Director of Instruction, Education Services, he, him.
Aaron Davis, Director of Instruction, Education Services, he, him.
Rick Lopez, Director of Instruction, Education Services, he, him.
Ranjit Bains, Director of Instruction, Education Services, she, her.
Hi, Tricia Legg, District Vice Principal, Education Services and Safe and Caring Schools.
Hi, I'm Sherry. I'm with DPAC.
Michael Gray, Executive Director, Employee Services. Welcome, everybody.
Rochita Gondalikar, Recorder.
All right, thank you. And now we are moving to the agenda to this evening. Now we have 2 items for approval and no discussion or information items on the evening's agenda. Items for approval. Item number 1.1, Framework for Enhancing Student Learning Annual Report. I'll ask Associate Superintendent Maureen McGregor Stringer to present item 1.1, Framework for Enhancing Student Learning Annual Report.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to be presenting this year's report for the Framework for Enhancing Student Learning. Next slide, please. So I want to ground our presentation this evening in what matters most, and that is student success. It's success for all learners in the VSB. As per our board policy, back a slide, please. Thank you. As per our board policy 1, our foundational statement, really what we want to be focusing on is creating learning communities for our students, where students feel seen, connected, supported, and they can become lifelong learners and leave our K-12 system prepared for the world ahead of them. Next slide, please. The Ministry of Education is also very encouraged about student success and want to make sure that we're growing student success across the province. And they have set out through the Framework for Enhancing Student Learning policy and guidelines what boards need to do to actually ensure that we are continuously looking at student success. So we are asked to, as a Board of Education, set, create, and maintain a strat plan, which we do through our education plan process, to annually report on student outcomes, to put systems in place to continuously improve the educational outcomes for all students, all learners, as well as improve equity for Indigenous students, children and youth in care, and students with disabilities or diverse abilities. So again, we are focused on this work in the VSB and across the province. Next slide, please. The indicators of success the province asks us to look at on a regular basis are around 3 key goal areas. So first of all, we look at intellectual development, where we are asked to support our students to meet or exceed expectations in literacy and numeracy at each grade level. We're also asked to make sure that we're promoting human and social development for our learners and making sure that our students feel welcome, safe, and connected to their school. And of course, we look at career development, wanting all of our students to graduate in a timely fashion and have the core competencies to achieve their career and life goals. All 3 of these goals are interconnected. We know that students have to feel that sense of connection and safety and belonging to be able to engage in their academics. And of course, these 2 areas help them to be ready for their career development later on in life. Next slide, please. Within the festival policy and guidelines, we are asked to look at certain data sets to show evidence of this measures of success and improvement. In the area of intellectual development, the ministry provides us with information from the Foundation Skills Assessment grade 4 and 7, graduation numeracy and literacy assessments at grade 10, as well as grade-to-grade transition information. We also look at the Student Learning Survey for grades 4, 7, and 10, a comprehensive survey given to students by the ministry yearly that talks about their experiences at home, at school, and in the community. And we also look at our 5-year completion rates for the career development piece, looking at students who enter grade 8 and graduate by their grade 12 year, as well as transitions to post-secondary institutions within 3 years. So we know this is just some of the data that supports our success stories in the VSB. We also have qualitative data from our teachers, our students, our staff, our families. We have observations and conversations about student success all the time. And we also use some locally developed measures, things like report cards, locally developed surveys. All of these pieces put together the picture of success for us in the VSB. Next slide. Who is included in this data from FESL? We are looking at a number of populations. So the first one is all resident students. So within the VSB, we are looking at all students who are BC residents or ordinarily BC residents. And these are students and families who may be on a work or study permit. Who is not in that data is actually students who are international students.
Privilege. Sorry, there's someone who's looking to get the attention of the chair.
Oh, sorry. Can we hold the questions at the end?
Thank you. We'll get to questions later. So the all resident students are ordinarily resident in BC, and we do not include our international fee paying students in that population. We also want to be focusing on priority populations in our school district. Indigenous learners are learners who have ever self-identified as Indigenous on an enrollment data collection in a September enrollment. They are also students who may be on reserve or off reserve within the VSB. We also look at students with disabilities or diverse abilities, and these are learners who have any of the 12 Ministry of Education inclusive education designations. We also look at the population of children and youth in care within our district, and we're looking at the outcomes for these learners as an important piece of our student success picture. Next slide, please. So as per the FESL policy and guidelines, our district puts together a continuous cycle of improvement policy and process for us. The visual on the left side of the screen you've seen before in things like our financial planning documents and budget documents as well. And you can see in the middle that we are focused on student success, and we look at our FESL and our education plan guidelines as well as our other plans, financial plans, and we reflect and review on the work that we do on a regular basis. So of course, for us in the VSB, we are focused on those 3 key areas of the education plan. The first of them being student achievement, physical and mental well-being and belonging, increasing equity for all of our learners, as well as continuing our journey with reconciliation with our First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. So this is part of our responsibility in FESL, is to share the work we do aligned to these goals and objectives. Next slide, please. So we are very proud that we have aligned the work of both FESL and our education plan very closely to the work that happens in our district for all of our staff and in all of our schools. So our operational plans that each department creates yearly actually reflect those FESL and education plan goals. So even though somebody might not be working in a school, they could be in our district office, their work supports student success. And that could be in finance, it could be in employee services, it could be in purchasing. Everything we do is to support students in schools. Our school learning plans, which Pedro will share with you a little bit later on this evening, are also aligned to the FESL goals and to our education plan goals. We are all on the same page when it comes to how we support students to be successful. And increasingly, our staff are aligning their own personal professional growth plans with the education plan and FESL goals. So if we want to improve equity for our students, we might need to learn more about equity ourselves and take on that Pro-D to be able to share that with our schools and our students. Next slide, please. We also know that we have to action, adjust, and share this work on a regular basis. In the past several years, we've really made an effort to make sure that everyone in our organization is aware of FESL and aware of the education plan. We share it with district staff at meetings and events. We also share with our principals and vice principals on a regular basis. So we will share with them the provincial data from FESL, the district level data, and also their school level data. And the principals and vice principals will share that back with their teachers and support staff. In the process to create their school learning plan, they will look at some of this data, both qualitative and quantitative, and actually create goals that are unique for their schools to support their unique learners. We also share the information with our FESL Advisory Committee, our Indigenous Education Council, and through their Education Plan Committee. And ultimately, each year, we must share our successes with the Ministry of Education and Childcare in this annual FESL report. Next slide. I want to speak a little bit further about the FESL Advisory Committee, and many of you in this room were actually on the committee, and I thank you for your participation in that committee throughout last year. We met together with inherent rights holders, stakeholders, district staff, students, parents, came together to talk about the goals of FESL and to look at the data as it became available through the yearly cycle. So in December, we focused on the student learning survey, and we met together and talked about ways to improve that sense of belonging, connection, and welcome and safety. In January, we talked about completion and graduation rates and post-secondary transitions. In April, we focused on literacy and numeracy achievement and outcomes. And then in June, we had a very powerful last session with our group where we had our directors of instruction and district principals from all of our departments share the work that they're doing to support the FESL objectives and requirements in schools. We also had our student representatives share their experiences about what has made their time in the VSB successful and what our staff and teachers have done for them to make the journey a positive one for them. So we're really pleased with our FESL Advisory Committee, and much of the work that they did with us last year has guided the report that was included in your package this evening. Next slide, please. A couple of key updates to the reporting process. It looks a bit different this year. If someone who's followed FESL for the past couple of years, the report looks a little bit different. Last year, the Ministry of Education and Childcare invited 8 districts across the province to be involved in a FESL report review process. I was privileged to be the representative here from the VSB on that committee, and we had a chance to look at the process and the requirements and make some key changes. So 3 things came out of that working group. The first being that the ministry agrees that we should have consistency of the FESL reports across all provinces in the district, and they created for us a standardized provincial template. So the report looks very different. There's a standardized template that we fill in. There's guiding questions that we answer, that all districts will answer around their data. And we also were given provincial data graphs and charts that show cohort sizes, participation rates, and graphs of achievement over 5 years. So all districts in the province have a very similar template now for FESL for consistency. We also looked at the requirements, and we now have 2 options for the FESL report. The first is a full comprehensive report, and the second is an interim progress report. And this will now be done on a 3-year reporting cycle. So what's going to happen is in year 1 and 2, districts who are on that particular cycle will submit an interim progress report. In year 3, it will be a full, complete FESL report. So for 24-25, the report that you see in the package is an interim progress report. Next slide, please. So within that interim progress report, there are 2 main sections. The first is called Review Data and Evidence. And in this part, we are asked to analyze and interpret the ministry data sets provided to us around intellectual, human and social, and career development. And again, you'll see in the report, it's very structured. You see the graphs first, and then you see an analysis page and an interpretation page, pardon me. In the second part, it's called Respond to Results. And here's where we have a chance to reflect and adjust on the work that we're doing. And in this section, we are asked to speak about the initiatives that we're doing in the district and align that with our education plan and FESL goals. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start to provide a bit of a high-level review of what we noticed in the Review of Data and Evidence section, the analysis and interpretation. And as I mentioned, this begins on page 3 of the report, and it will show you graphs and charts, and then after you'll see some of the commentary from the district team around analysis and interpretation. In the next couple of slides, I will just share high level some of the data that we noticed within the report in each of those FESL key areas. Next slide, please. The first section is on literacy and numeracy. So a couple of things that we are very proud of. We have seen an increase in participation rates for grade 4 and 7 over the last 5 years in the foundation skill assessment. By having more data and more robust data, it's going to help us to actually look at our system effectiveness and figure out ways we can support students in schools. So we're really proud of that increase in those rates. We are also very proud that all of our VSB resident students in all grades are at or above provincial proficiency rates for both literacy and numeracy. And this has been consistent over the past several years. We do note that proficiency for our priority learners, so as I mentioned, diverse learners, Indigenous learners, children and youth in care, it is below all resident VSB students for literacy and numeracy at all grades. So we see a gap in the achievement between our priority populations and all resident students. However, our students with disabilities and diverse abilities in all grades are above the provincial average consistently for literacy and numeracy. So strong results for our diverse populations. Our grade 4 and 7 literacy, VSB and the province, has been trending downward. We've seen this trend for the past 5 years across the province and in VSB. We've seen a slight upward trend for numeracy at grade 4 and 7. We have seen a decline in proficiency in numeracy in grade 10 for all populations. And we've noticed over the past 5 years that literacy proficiency is consistently higher than numeracy for all grades and for all learners. Next slide, please. The next section of the data is from the Student Learning Survey and focuses on belonging, welcome, safety, and adult connections. So within the data, we can see that feelings of safety and welcome are higher than belonging and connections for all grades and all learner populations. Our priority learners are reporting lower outcomes in belonging and welcome. Welcome and belonging are highest in grade 4 for all learners and decrease for priority populations in grade 7 and grade 10. Adult connections are strongest in grade 4 and lower in grade 7 and 10. And the 5-year data trend indicates that 79% of all students consistently feel safe at school with a slight decrease at grade 10. So again, we can see here we have some strength areas of students' connection and belonging and welcome and safety, but definitely some gaps and differences for some of our priority populations. Next slide, please. Completion rates. So these are students who are graduating within that 5-year window. So the majority of our VSB students will graduate with that Dogwood diploma within 5 years. So great results for us there. Our completion rates consistently are strong over the last 5 years. So last year in particular, our 5-year rate was 89% of all students graduated, and that includes students within priority populations. Our 6-year rate was 94%. I just want to comment here that the 6-year rate means the students who might be taking an extra course, a semester, a partial year to complete their graduation requirements. And we really believe that that completion rate is actually more accurate. There are many reasons why students might need to take a little bit more time to complete. It could be they're a high-performing athlete and they've been attending school maybe partially. They could have been away, or they could have been ill. They could be taking additional requirements to get into a post-secondary institution. So we really acknowledge that for some students it does take more time to graduate, and that's okay. And we'll support students along that pathway. Next, the completion rates for all students and students with disabilities or diverse abilities are aligned and high with or higher than the province. So again, we are really pleased with that result, that we are on par or higher with the province. The 5-year rates, however, for our students with diversities are about 20% lower than all students. The 6-year rate is about 14% lower than all students. So we still see a gap there, even though we are above the province in many ways in those areas. We want to close that gap. Our Indigenous completion rates are trending downward, and they have been for the past 5 years in the VSB. They are lower than all VSB student groups and lower than provincial Indigenous rates. So again, of course, an area of us to focus on in upcoming years. For our children and youth in care, this is a very small and fluctuating cohort size each year, and their completion rates are significantly lower than other populations because their cohort size is quite small. Next slide, please. So after doing that review of the data and the evidence, and again, that was very high level, there is much more comprehensive detail in the actual report, we continue to identify district priorities for us in this work. So I want to be really clear that for literacy and numeracy proficiency, although in many ways we are doing very well and above the province in many areas, we have gaps in achievement, and we know we have to close those gaps and work to support our priority populations. We also know that the magic of student success happens in classrooms with our amazing teachers who are doing incredible work every day with our students. We want to support our teachers in our classrooms to make sure that we have quality instruction and assessment. We're supporting teachers with things like literacy and numeracy proficiency, and making sure that we are supporting through universal design for learning and other methods to support students who might need extra support. We also know that well-being and connections are important for everyone within our system, and that they will help students to be more connected to their academics in school. And again, our priority learners, they need to be on the radar all the time for us, and really with the goal to really close those gaps in achievement and connection and well-being. Next slide, please. The second section of the report is called Respond to Results. This is actually a very comprehensive piece of the FESL document. It's about 20 pages long, so a lot of reading for you if you took a look. It is in a chart form. The ministry, part of their new template is to use a chart. It's called the Reflect and Adjust chart. And within the chart, we have these categories where we have to identify a strategy that's aligned to our education plan goals and objectives, talk about why we chose that strategy, how we want to grow in that area, talk about how effective that strategy has been or will be, and then talk about how we're going to move that strategy forward. So continue with it, adapt it, etc., as the years continue. So within this section, as I mentioned, there are all of our education plan goals and objectives are listed there with our initiatives. It is a curated list. There are more things that we could have added to this, but these are the high-level things that we're working on. In the next couple of slides, I'm just going to highlight a few of these things that we're working on. There are many more in the report. Next slide, please. So in the area of literacy and numeracy, we have many exciting initiatives that are ongoing in the VSB. We are very excited to implement the new K-12 literacy initiatives from the Ministry of Education and Childcare. This information came out last spring with a focus on making sure that students have those literacy skills to continue on in their learning journey. The ministry has identified these areas based on data that's coming from things like FESL and ministry data collected across the province, that we've seen that literacy is an area that needs to have a bit of attention, a bit more attention. In the upcoming school year, we are going to be implementing kindergarten literacy screeners. These are very brief, short assessments that a classroom teacher does with each of their students a number of times a year on those foundational literacy skills. So we're beginning this year with kindergarten. Many of our schools are already doing screeners, and we are looking forward to the upcoming year. We're going to add on grades 1 to 3 for screeners as well. And the ministry has let us know that they are going to create actually a provincial BC literacy screener for kindergarten, grade 1, 2, and 3. And we will implement that across all grades next year, and that's for all students K to 3. We also know that literacy is not just about those primary grades, but we have students who might need more support in grades 4 to 12. We'll continue to be focusing on quality instruction, assessment, and interventions for literacy in the upper grades as well. We are also excited to be working on the creation of a VSB numeracy framework. As you know, we have a pretty incredible document, the Responsive Literacy Framework, that we are using to ground the work when it comes to literacy. We're going to be creating a numeracy framework that will be similar, a companion document to help to guide our teaching, our pedagogy, and our practice around numeracy skills for our students. And we continue to provide math resources and ongoing professional development to our teachers. For example, math expert, educator, and guru Marion Small was with us last year for several sessions, helping teachers to understand pedagogy around math instruction. And we are also using her Math Up resources and programming to support the work. Next slide, please. For quality instruction and assessment, again, these are just a curation, a small sample of things that we are working towards. We're continuing in year 2 of our professional learning communities at the elementary level. What happens here is we group schools together who might have a similar school learning plan set of goals or some objectives. We assign to them one of the members of our learning and instruction team, a district support teacher, who will go into classrooms and work side by side with teachers and with students to support literacy, assessment, instruction. And this is a very effective way to provide job-embedded professional development for our teachers. It means that teachers are collaborating and learning together in their classrooms on a daily basis. So we're really excited about continuing that at elementary. Last year, we also had literacy residencies in 6 of our schools. We invited into the district experts and researchers and educators in literacy who worked with 6 schools, over 100 teachers, and again, working side by side to help them to structure lessons, co-planning and co-teaching together. We'll continue that for this year as well. We also have district resource teachers who are embedded in our secondary schools to support classroom practices. These are teachers who might be teaching 7 blocks, for example, of English or science or math, and they have another block that's non-enrolling where they can support other classroom teachers with their pedagogy and practice. And finally, we are really excited about implementing Spaces EDU. It is an assessment and communicating student learning tool we're using for elementary report cards, and we're launching that this year. And also we use that for core competency self-assessment at the secondary level. So a lot of good things happening around quality instruction and assessment. Next slide, please. For our priority learners, many initiatives in the FESL document for you to take a look at. Here are some that I've curated for you. Last year, we partnered with Chapter 1 Tutoring, and this was for our Indigenous learners K to 7. We had 80 students involved in many hours of one-to-one tutoring to support their reading levels and reading skills, and we saw gains in their reading level throughout that time, which is very positive. We also really strengthened our transition planning for students who have disabilities or diverse abilities. 242 of these learners were able to participate in work experience with employers in the Lower Mainland. And this allowed them to kind of have that transition path after they would graduate. So really proud of that initiative for those learners. We also last year put in some structures to really support our children and youth in care. We have a partnership with MCFD and with VACFAS, the Aboriginal Society, to talk about how we can connect social workers with schools when we have children who are in care to be able to provide supports and case management for those learners. And finally, on this note, last year we did quite a bit of work in the FESL advisory and with our principals and vice principals around this idea that graduation K to 12 is a collective responsibility. And the idea that, graduation starts in kindergarten, the way we welcome students into school, how we help them with foundational skills and learning, that is going to help them when they get to grade 10, when the graduation program begins. We also talked about that the work is for teachers and administrators and staff members, parents and community. We are all collectively supporting our students to graduation, especially with our priority learners. The way we welcome them to school and work with them is really important. Next slide, please. Well-being and connections. So again, many great things happening in our district around these initiatives. The first is really our strong collaboration between district partners and community partners like VCH, Complex Trauma Resources, to provide ongoing Pro-D and learning resources around social and emotional learning and mental health. Almost all of our elementary schools last year, all 89, had the opportunity to have workshops from district staff coming in to talk about SEL programs and ways to embed within our classrooms. So great work happening there. Our equity and anti-oppression team, many things they're working on to really help to guide students to feel that they belong and that sense of connection and see themselves in our school and programs. And a highlight is our diversity, equity, and inclusion student-led conference that was in its 5th year last year, and really embracing students to see themselves in our schools and in our curriculum. We're also excited about the creation of a student agency framework. We really want to hear our student voices and listen to what they need to be successful in school. That is being worked on this year. We're going to be having it co-created with students in elementary, secondary, and district staff and site-based staff in schools. And of course, we are so proud of the ongoing work with our Indigenous department, as well as Education Council and inherent stakeholders and rights holders to learn more about Indigenous histories, traditions, cultures, contributions, to make sure that we know more about those things to share back with our students and families, and that our Indigenous families and students feel that sense of welcome and connection and respect. Next slide, please. So that was a lot of information, I know, and the report is quite robust. But I want to take us back to how I started. And really, the work is all about student success. And we know that we have some great strengths. We have some areas of challenge. Our data, both qualitative and quantitative, tell us that we are doing great things. But we want to be relentless in our pursuit of all students being able to achieve and feel safe and feel welcome in our schools. And we're committed to doing that work and focusing on really closing those gaps that we see for our priority populations. So thank you, Chair.
Oh, thank you, Maureen. Well, very informative. Thank you. Now, question time. Are there any questions related to this framework of enhancing student learning in any report? But I try to focus on only this report piece. All right, please.
Thank you, Carl Janzi, Vancouver Secondaries. I actually have a few questions, so I'm going to start with one, then I'll leave it to other people. Come back to me when you can. So I'm looking at the report. Specifically, it is objective number 2.1 on page 43, which is a review of alternate programs. Excuse me. And it's curious, it says that we are seeing a reduction in the number of referrals. A reduction implies that there's data tracking the number of referrals and that there's been a change over time. We have never seen this information, so we really are hoping that it can be made available to us, because it does run counter to the stories that we're hearing at the school level. And so we would really like to figure out what the discrepancy is. So if it would be possible to have this information shared with the secondary, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. So just to refresh that point, on page 43, it's talking about ongoing review of specialized programs. It doesn't say alternate programs per se, just so you're aware of that. And really, this is around referrals for students in some of our elementary programs. So potentially, I think maybe Allison or Rosie want to step in on this one.
Yes, Allison, you want?
Through the chair, we heard the request for looking at that information, and we can reach back out to VSTA with that. Yes.
All right, thank you, Alison. Second questions?
Deborah Tinton Vase. Yeah, just to follow up on Carl's question about the information on page 43. So in regards to the elementary specialized program, the report says that it reflects an increased capacity to support students in their neighborhood schools. And our members are reporting to us, they're telling us that there is not an increased amount of staffing at the neighborhood schools to support the students who were in these programs, and that then the programs were closed. So yeah, it's just not our members' experience that that's the case. Another thing is that the reduction of referrals, our members are finding that there is an increase in denials of students being able to access these programs. So teachers and counselors and other members are finding that the district has communicated the criteria change for these denials. It's not consistent in the responses they're getting. So it's leading to a lot of frustration and confusion from our members who are trying to access supports for students with special needs. So that's an issue. Yeah, it creates a problem because these students who were in the programs, they go back to their neighborhood schools after the programs are closed. There aren't additional supports for them, and it creates barriers for students with disabilities and diverse abilities to access public education. Because what our members are reporting is that those students are now not attending school on a regular basis because those supports are in place.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair. Thank you. So just to be clear, the goal is that students are supported in their mainstream neighborhood schools, and that when they're coming out of various programs, that we have supports in place as they return through our resource teachers, through other supports in the classroom. So those things are happening when they return to their mainstream schools. I don't know if Rosie or Allison wants to jump in on that.
Yeah, through the chair, I appreciate the question. I think that working with teachers and staff in schools is really critical as we move to authentic inclusion for all students to be able to attend their schools. And for us to know, kind of as a group and as a committee, that the philosophy around inclusion is that it's not a strategy to help people fit into our already existing structures and systems, but it's about transforming our systems and structures to make it better for everyone. And inclusion is about creating a better outcome and environment for all students, and we absolutely have work to do on that. But I do want to be clear that we are working to make sure that all students are welcome in their schools and that we are not sending students out of their catchment schools to self-contained programs.
All right, thank you, Alison. Do you have more questions? Yes, Sherry.
Hi, I'm Sherry Brashears. I don't need to do that from DPAC. I'm just wondering if the charts are available on the slides. I don't know if you actually showed the charts that are in the report. I'm interested in the grade 4 literacy and numeracy results. Is it possible to put them on the screen? If you have access to them?
Through the chair, we don't have the charts on the slide, but they're in the actual FESL report. So if you have the report,
I do.
The charts are in there.
Okay, then I'll just point out the page
Sure.
for folks who have it. So I was interested, and we are interested in specifically the grade 4 literacy results on page 5. I just want to point out that the drop in results for Indigenous students is really dramatic. It's 22 points between the previous year and the year where the assessment that the report is based on. And the drop for students with disabilities is also significant. And although there was a drop across the board, when we see 22-point drops, I think our alarm bells should be going off. And then also, I mean, the results are dropping everywhere, but those are the ones that really stood out to me. The other one that I would point out is the grade 4 numeracy. The full sample actually increased, but the drop for Indigenous students was also significant, and the drop for students with disabilities was 14 points. So, we can look and we can continue to see that there are low numbers for students with disabilities and for Indigenous students. And of course, also for youth in care, that which we don't always see in reported. But so I guess I want to know, it seems to me that these issues need to be addressed in a really urgent way. And so I'm wondering if funding will be and staffing will be directed and targeted for these groups. This is grade 4, and we know that the literacy funding that's coming in will be mainly targeted to, well, the early literacy screeners. But how are we going to support kids who are falling that far behind? I'll also point out that this is the year that the Inclusive Ed Working Group started to notice a significant drop in staffing ratios of resource teachers and support workers, specifically for students with disabilities. And I'm wondering if we should be concerned that we're starting to see the results of that failure to support kids with specific needs. So I guess I'll just leave that there. And then I have a couple of other people from DPAC who have a couple of questions that I can read out, but I'll just start with that.
Okay, Alison. Oh, sorry, Maureen.
Thank you, through the chair. So I think that within the report, we acknowledge that the gaps for our priority learners, that is evident for us as well. And we are trying to put supports in place for learners who might be struggling in the areas of literacy. There's more work to be done. I think it's also really challenging when we look at these numbers because we have different cohort sizes, and the impact on fluctuations in numbers of learners can really, it can make 22% seem very large when it's a small number to begin with. So we want to just be really aware of the comparison of cohort sizes as well. But definitely we are looking at those supports and trying to put pieces in place. Our learning and instruction team and district learning services team as well are working with classroom teachers and with resource teachers around other literacy supports. For example, we are going to be working on creating literacy screeners specifically for students who are nonverbal. We're really trying to target some of the things that need to happen for these learners as we move forward. We also know that some of the learners in this report are impacted by COVID. I know we don't like to think about COVID, but that was 5 years ago. And some of these students were at that time on partial programs or remote learning. So we're seeing some of those impacts across the province, and that's why we're seeing some of these literacy dips as well. But definitely we know we have work to do, and there are gaps in achievement.
All right, thank you. Any follow-up questions? Trustee Richardson and Carl.
Thank you. My question might be a tough one to get answered. I might think it might fall to you, Mike, seeing as how Flavia and Helen and Dan Blue aren't here. But I don't know. You can take it back, okay? I'm looking at Objective 2.4 on page 51. It's called Refine the VSB Budget Process to Better Support Student Success. It references an area for growth to effectively and efficiently staff the schools. My question is that given looking at the budget coming up for this year versus the budget for the year we just finished, there was a $4 million cut to teacher salaries. There was a $500,000 increase to district administration, and a $500,000 increase to district admin, and a $400,000 increase to business admin. And given that we're currently involved in discussions at the school level about closing classes, my question was going to be, are we going to see a similar reduction of the classes that we're cutting? So we're going to be cutting teaching staff. Are we going to be also cutting administrative staff? So that was going to be my question. But sorry, Mike. Hopefully somebody can answer.
Yeah. I think this question should be going to a finance meeting, but I'll hold it to the, maybe I'll pass it to the finance meeting afterwards. Thank you. And next, who is in line? Oh, so Richardson first. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering, and this is a question I brought up last year, and I'm not sure if it's at a district level or provincial level, but whatever level, I'm thinking that we're talking in terms of priority students and the 12 categories. Is there a breakdown by category so that we can track or some of the categories that would available to have an appendix to this in terms of within the categories within that broad category of students with their disabilities or diverse abilities.
So through the chair, the ministry does not provide that level of data for the FESL report, so we cannot see the breakdown of the party populations within that data. However, we do know that there are some particular data sets that we can look at on our own, and I think that when it comes to the ministry categories and designations, some of those students are on a evergreen pathway for graduation, so they're working on their IEP goals and outcomes, so they would not be included, for example, in graduation rates because the evergreen is a different type of completion. So some of the success for our diverse learners is actually not recorded in the data. So I would argue that having the evergreen certificate data within the completion rate data would actually improve what we're seeing for our students with disabilities and diverse abilities in all categories.
I'm wondering whether that thought would be useful in terms of consideration, whether it's for this report or next year's report, given that it's the interim report, whether in fact there is those comments, and maybe they're there, and I got Pedro's 753-page report that we'll be dealing with. I got messed up in that before coming back here. So is that a possibility? And it's just a thought that whether we make those inclusions in terms of the fact that this is showing something, but there are in fact other data sets that we may want to consider.
Yes, we can consider that for the full report.
Thank you, Maureen. Next questions.
Yes. Hi, thank you. It's going back to the question around, or the comment around Indigenous students and the FSA. Do we know if the percentage of Indigenous students taking the FSAs has increased over the past year, or do we know out of how many Indigenous students in grade 4, for instance, how many are taking the test or the assessment?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, we do have that information in the FESL report. It's included in the participation charts above each of the graphs. And last year we have seen improvements in those Indigenous participation rates, and we are looking to have more students write in this upcoming year. We know it's really important to get that data so we can know how those students are doing to provide supports to them.
Can I ask
follow-up questions?
Yeah, so what was the increase of students? Sorry.
Through the chair, just going to flip through the document.
Page 5.
So on page 5, we can see for the grade 4 rates for Indigenous resident students, participation rate was 39%. In 2020-2021, so 5 years ago, it was 18%. So we've seen an increase over the past several years. We would like to see a higher number of students taking that assessment. It doesn't break it down into on reserve and off reserve because those numbers are masked. It's a very small cohort size. So that's for grade 4.
Okay, and do we know why they're not taking the test?
There are a variety of reasons why students might not take the FSA. Sometimes it's parents requesting their students to be excluded, but all students are expected to write the FSA.
The only reason I'm asking is if we actually had closer, like a more fulsome amount, of what the data would actually look like then, if there would be higher results or even lower results. Thank you.
And we would like to see more data, absolutely.
All right, thank you. Next in line, Deborah.
Yeah, Deb Tinta Vase. So I was looking at the report, and it seemed like the chapter 1 tutoring, one-to-one tutoring for Indigenous students seemed like a very effective program. And it said in the report that the goal was to expand it so that all Indigenous students who needed it could access it. So is there a timeline in place for that happening? Like, is it like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years?
Right now, we are hoping to sign up more First Nations students because this program is a nonprofit organization that provides the tutoring, and they are funded through Jordan's Principle. Right now, Jordan's Principle funding is as you know, backlogged in the government. So they're having issues getting more additional funding. But from what we've seen of the 80 students that have been participating in the program, the data from the organization has been very, very positive. Some students have had over 360 hours of instruction over the last year, and some as little as 5. So it's high impact, one-to-one tutoring, and it's evidence-based to show improvement. So we've been very happy with the results, and we hope to continue it, but it really is based on whether we can access the funding and continue to provide those supports.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions? Victoria?
I have two. One other quick comment around the decline in literacy across the province, literacy rates, and if there's a correlation that has been provided on a provincial level. And my second comment question is around the student agency framework, and just an extra sentence or two on that, please.
So the province has not provided us with information around, why they are seeing those declining rates, like their interpretation of that data. We have sort of, kind of have our own hunch around the impact potentially of COVID impacting these groups that are now coming through at that grade 4 and that grade 7 level. But obviously because of that data, that is why the ministry is now having these K-12 literacy initiatives. They want to make sure that we are targeting that work and they're supporting that work through some grants to each of the districts. And then as far as the student agency framework goes, this has really come out of work through the associate superintendents and schools and principals and vice principals, and also from the work of the VDSC. So students saying that they want to be more involved, they want to have their opinions and their voices heard, and trying to have a format for that, right? When we look at our student learning survey data and students are saying, like, I don't feel welcome or belonging or connected to adults, we're trying to respond to that and find out what do they actually need, how can we actually make sure their voices are heard, and that they have some ability to be able to shape some things that happen in their schools to support engagement. So we're excited about that. And it will be elementary and secondary students involved.
Thank you. May I just make a request on a board level to just get a little bit more information in writing on that? Because it's a great piece of information to push out. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, any more questions? All right. Deborah?
Yeah, so we heard a lot about how literacy is a district priority, and the district is rolling out the literacy screeners, which I imagine would reveal to us many students who are in urgent need of literacy supports. So my question is, will there be any additional supports for teaching literacy, or will they be simply telling teachers that it's a really important goal? So looking at the presentation, I saw that the current staff that we have are organized into professional learning communities. But my understanding is that is just a reorganization of the existing staff. So in order for there to be additional supports for these students that we are going to identify by using the literacy screeners, what will the district do to support those students with staffing?
Thank you, through the chair. So first of all, just to be really clear, we are already doing a lot of screening with our K-3 students. We have a K protocol we've been using in the VSB for the past several years, and over 70 of our schools are already using that protocol and have been doing these processes. We're going to tweak that a little bit to align with the ministry's guidelines for the screeners for this year. So the work is already happening, and we have our classroom teachers who are working in their classrooms once they get the results from their screeners. That's helping them to actually put students into different reading groups, for example, ability-based groups with certain skills, to be able to do group work, guided reading groups. A lot of our schools already have a lot of structures in place around that. So I think we're confident that we already are screening many of our students and we're identifying their needs. We also know that we do have our PLCs, as we mentioned, and we have teachers who are working side by side in classrooms with teachers who support this work. They're also collaborating with resource teachers at their school, and we really want to focus on Pro-D around literacy, instruction, assessment, and intervention. So that support is coming from our district teams in DLS, Learning Services, and Learning and Instruction as we move forward.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Susie? Trustee Ma?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So I have a few questions, but maybe I'll do them one at a time, and then, because there's other people that want to speak, right? Okay, so this is great, very meaty, very extensive, very in-depth. So my question is, when you look at the adjustments and adaptations column, what kind of metrics are we going to be using to see how well we are doing in these areas? And I guess my question is, some of it would, I guess, go back to the data, like when we input new data, that's going to come out and we're going to look at a new graph. But some of these things are, some of the strategies and some of the actual adaptations and adjustments, those are not measurable in terms of clear-cut, numerical type of data. So I'm wondering, how are we going to be looking at those metrics?
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, we have data measures, obviously, from FESL that we are going to be looking at and hoping to see improvements there in those metrics. As I mentioned earlier, that is quantitative data that has its own limitations coming from the ministry and the way that these assessments and surveys are done in our schools. So we do have to look at our locally developed data sets as well, surveys that we create for our students. Our report card data will be part of that information as well to see how student success is improving through time. But also there are, as you said, there are qualitative pieces, right? Things that aren't as measurable. It's going to be things like student surveys. It's going to be surveys of teachers. It's going to be those types of pieces to see if we're having an impact on some of those measures. So again, that combination of quantitative and qualitative to see how we're doing in those areas. I think we learned last year from the FESL advisory that really hearing student voice and having that student voice and agency framework will help us to gather some of that qualitative data about student experiences and success.
Can I just follow up with what just Maureen said?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. So where do the parents fit in on this? Because we're talking about teachers, we're talking about employees, we're talking about students, but where do parents come in terms of collecting that qualitative data?
Thank you, through the chair. So we do have opportunities for parents. We had parents who were on our FESL advisory committee, and we collected a lot of feedback and qualitative data from them and information from them. We also have parent reps on other committees around the VSB and working groups, and that's where we'll be hearing their voice and their information around our success.
All right, thank you, Maureen. Next question, Trustee Richardson.
It just dawned on me that we're talking about priority students and we're talking about students in ministry care, Indigenous students, students with disabilities or diverse abilities this year. Last year, was the priority group not also included English language learners as well? And I'm just wondering where they fit in terms of reporting out, and maybe it's somewhere but I didn't see it.
Through the chair, thank you for the question. With the revisions to the FESL reporting process, ELL learners are not considered priority populations in the eyes of the ministry. So that's why the data is not included in this particular report this year. We do track the data for ELL learners, and as I mentioned last year in the FESL report, those learners are doing incredibly well when it comes to our graduation and completion rates. They're almost at par with our all-resident students, and we have lots of amazing supports in place for those learners when it comes to literacy and numeracy. So the ministry they are not part of the FESL policy requirements, but we are supporting and tracking our ELL learners.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Remember, we still have another agenda. All right, any questions? Oh, Carl?
Thank you, Carl Janzi, VSTA. It's a question on page 50. It's more of clarification, just so it should hopefully be short. Objective 1.5 on page 46. You get there too. It's the one on aligning ongoing implementation of the FESL policy. There's a reference in it to professional growth plans. So I just clarifying that when you say professional growth plans, you're talking administration, not teachers, correct?
Thank you, the chair. Yes, we're talking about our district staff, and some of our administrators are using their PGP as a way to enhance their own learning about how to support students with the education plan goals.
All right, thank you. And okay, we have two more questions, right? One, two. So, Trustee Ma, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So on page 37, the big on the right-hand side, because there's many different pages on each page. So on page 37, there is talk about professional development, working with teachers, there's a lot of stuff going on here in terms of working with different tools, working with different platforms, etc. Even talking about working with the new report card writing tool. And my question is, are there going to be additional funds that will be required to implement all of this, or are we still working within the budget and within the professional development funds that we have currently?
Through the chair, there are no additional funds required. These pieces are already within our budget for this upcoming school year.
Thank you.
All right, any hopefully last one, or Sherry? Yeah.
So my last question was about whether we could see an increase in funding, specifically staffing ratios, resource teachers, support workers for the kids who, kids with disabilities, like given the outcomes that we're seeing. And I just don't know if I got a straight answer. So I would just like to have a clearer answer on that. And I did have a couple of other questions, but I think I'll highlight this one from a parent who was involved in the FESL meetings, who has a disability. A lot of parents, a lot of kids with disabilities have parents also with disabilities because there's often a genetic element. The question is if the FESL meetings can be made more accessible for people with disabilities in the upcoming year and forthcoming years. If you could answer the question about funding first. Thank you.
Thank you through the chair. So we right now, our staffing is, we staff to the collective agreement requirements when it comes to our priority learners. And questions around staffing and enrollment really are part of another committee conversation, finance and personnel. We'll provide more information around that. And then the second question through the chair around the FESL Advisory Committee being more accessible. So just so folks are aware, for that committee, we did send out information to participants before the committee meetings. So we sent all the charts and graphs and documentation to people first to prepare. We also tried to work with people who wanted to have additional conversations around some of the data or provide feedback. I had some one-on-one meetings with people who are members of that group to make sure that their voices were heard. And absolutely, we will focus on accessibility so people feel that they can participate and be able to share their opinions.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We one last questions from Deborah.
Yeah, I just have a question of clarification about how the data was created. When it comes to the, I guess, the literacy outcomes and the on-track and extending, does that include report card data, or is that just the FSA?
Through the chair, the data that we have in the FESL report is just from the ministry and from their FSA data collection. We do also look at report card data that was referenced in the actual report.
All right. No more questions, right? Okay, I think no more questions from the committee members. I'm prepared to proceed and look to committee trustee on whether they would like to recommend this motion to the board for October 1st board meetings. The recommendation reads that the board approve the VSB framework for enhancing student learning annual report 2020 2024 to 2025 for submission to the Ministry of Education and Childcare by October 1st, 2025. And was I the trustee and trustee Penrose, Trustee Richardson, Trustee Ma, and myself. All right. So this will go to the board with the recommendation of the Education Plan Committee in support of this motion. If there's no further questions, we'll move to the next item for approval under item 1.2, school learning plans. And I'll ask Associate Superintendent Pedro da Silva to present the item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. All right, so school learning plans, they are a requirement of the framework for enhancing student learning policy. Schools are required to do this each year. We are also required to have a strategic plan or ed plan, and the conversation that just took place is also one of the requirements that we need to do as a district from the Ministry of Education. This is actually one of my favorite reports because I actually am sharing the work that's happening at schools. I think it's important to note that in a lot of the conversations that have been had that we directly support schools. These are plans that are established by the school principals with the school communities to address localized needs of students. A lot of these reports will help us inform some of the directions and purpose that we provide for schools and how we allocate district resources. So in the previous report, there was a lot of high-level data. I would say that the learning plans are really an attempt for schools and school principals to lean into the learners in their schools. And so I have shared, contrary to Trustee Richardson's framing of my report, they are actually a collection of the student learning reports. And they have been sent to you. I will just share with you a brief overview. We did take a look at all of them and just give some overarching goals. And you're welcome. And I hope that people in the committee did get to see them. So can we go to the next slide, please? So across all of the schools, three big themes were very evident, and that is the focus on literacy achievement, equity and belonging, and reconciliation with Indigenous communities. Next slide. I think there's been a lot of work that's been done through our work with school principals around taking a look at how students are doing in school, either through literacy and numeracy. And we've really have emphasized the use of data and to check in on how students do in the report card, look at attendance records, and a lot of work for them to start to understand where the needs are and the supports are at the school level. And so many of them will and have focused on taking a look at literacy achievement, and it looks very differently in some schools, but generally the theme is that they are prioritizing academic success. Next slide. I've been here many years. I take a lot of pride in the fact that schools are continuing to work around equity and belonging. It is a major focus. I think one of the big shifts over the last few years has been a real energy towards student voice and energy. And I think folks are keenly aware of the importance to try to remove a lot of the systemic barriers. I think the stat that's in front of you shows that, you know, many of our students are feeling well about how school is going for them. Next slide. Also deeply proud of the continued work and emphasis of the district and schools around reconciliation, truth and reconciliation. This is a key priority for us. Clearly from the previous presentation, there's work to be done. But I think it's important to point out that the messaging for school principals and from district staff is that we need to continue to work at this and continue to support the communities in many ways. And this is done through various strategies. We meet with community leaders, we bring in elders, we celebrate a lot of, you know, the Indigenous educators, and it is really something that we continue to strive at. Next slide. Some of the how we track progress, and this was talked about again earlier, but we do look at quantitative data, qualitative data, and we really try to focus in and work with our administrators to be iterative, to look at ways to adapt to what's happening at the school site. I think the qualitative data is actually much easier to get at these days with emerging technologies. I would say from my own experience, who had to do a lot of work digging through data in the past. I think with the invention of AI, there are much easier ways now to actually pick up qualitative data and collect conversations and do that kind of work. And it is work that we're working with our school administrators to blend in with the already overabundance quantitative data that we have in the system. And I would just like to highlight the adjustment process. I think sometimes we get information, the bigger and the work that we do is to try to just understand that an education system is a learning organization. And what's really important is that we continue to work at trying to get better. I know that there's been lots of conversations that talk about where we are and how we're doing. Sometimes what gets lost in conversations is the work that's done by everybody in the system, whether that would be the people who are directly involved at the school level, between the teachers, the custodians, the administrators, the district staff, collectively as a group. This is where the change can happen in a district, and I would highly encourage folks to focus in that, because there's a lot of really good professionals who do a lot of good work in this system, and they really care about the kids that they support. So that is the end of my report, and I'm happy to take some questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions related to the school learning plans? Only on this report. Oh, where? Anyone? Oh, Deborah.
Deborah Tinton, Vancouver Elementary. Yeah, my question is how much funding is available approximately to support schools with their school learning funds? Is there like a pot of money approximately, or is it a per school amount? And also, who has final say over how this funding is spent at the school level? Thank you.
So the work of bringing the community together is the work of school principals, and that is supported by district staff. There isn't magical pots of money in the organization. That is part of the work that we do to support learners. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, follow-up questions?
Yeah, I do. I just have a follow-up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because I know that sometimes school plans involve ideas that cost some money. So yeah, I recognize that it's the work of the principal and the school staff to come up with the plan, but sometimes there is some funds that are needed.
Yeah, so apologies, I misunderstood your first question. So if the question was, do we gather information and talk to our principals about resourcing the district, that is absolutely yes. That's part of the communication process that eventually goes through the budget process. And so we do go through the school plans. We look at where the areas of need, not just through ministry data, but also from the work the principal does to identify the needs of the district. And those are what we call the qualitative part of this job. There's lots of ongoing conversations and work that we try to prioritize and bring forward as budget requests to the budget cycle.
All right, thank you, Petro. Any other questions? Okay, no, I think that no more questions from the committee members. I'm prepared to proceed and look to committee trustee on whether they would like to recommend this motion to the board for the October 1st board meeting. The recommendation reads that the board, in accordance with section 8.31 of the School Act, approve the school learning plans and direct the superintendent of school to make the school learning plans available to parents or guardians of students attending each school in the Vancouver School District. We're supporting all the motions. Yes, in favor. Okay, approved. All right, thank you. This will go to the board with recommendations of the Education Plan Committee in support of this motion. And we have addressed all items on the agenda, and we will now adjourn the meetings. Thank you, everyone. We now adjourn at 7:44 p.m. Thank you.